American tourists in parts of western Mexico are still stranded after the death of a cartel leader set off a wave of violence. Today, officials in Mexico confirmed 25 members of Mexico's National Guard were killed in 6 separate attacks after the death of Kingpin El Mencho. He was killed in a shootout in his home state of Jalisco. Soldiers also killed another high-ranking cartel member they say was coordinating violence and offering more than $1,000 for every soldier killed. Today, several airlines suspended flights to cities like Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara. An East Texas woman is among the thousands of Americans being forced to shelter in place in Mexico. KLTV7's Emma Burns tells us how the conflict is impacting what was supposed to be a week in paradise.
Listen to it. It's not fake news. It's something that actually is occurring right now. Is it really that serious? It is serious.
Devin Leach regularly visits her family in San Antonio, Tlacopan, Mexico, just 30 miles outside of Guadalajara. What started as a peaceful and relaxing vacation led to shelter-in-place orders as a cartel-led violence broke out across the country.
More and more the locals really gathering things and closing down shops, and even one of the main guys, we kind of knocked on the door, and he came to the door and was like, sorry, we're closing because of the cartel.
Leach tells us access to food and water is limited in the city. For now, her family is relying on limited food they have at home. Leach says she's unsure when they'll be able to restock on essentials as the nearby shops and restaurants are closed.
We're trying this morning again to go out to see if we can get some fresh fruits and vegetables like cheese, things like that, to go with what foods we have, and everything is shut down still.
While Leach says she is sheltering in a safe place, the violence outside is devastating. American Airlines, Southwest, Delta, Alaska Airlines, and others have canceled flights to Guadalajara and Puerto Vallarta. Leach is hoping to return home this Thursday, but now she's caught in a waiting game to see if flights resume and if she can safely leave Mexico. Emma Burns, KLTV 7 News.
Now, if someone you know is in Mexico and needs help, you can call the State Department. There's also the Texas Fusion Center, which is run by DPS. Americans traveling in Mexico are advised to shelter in place until further notice.